If you've ever woken up from a dream that felt too real, this one's for you. I once had two vivid dreams about teeth just months apart from each other. In the first one, I was having dinner with my husband and I go to take a bite of food and I feel a loose tooth and I don't think much of it. So I just pull the tooth out and then my gums started to feel like slimy, like really gooey. And in the dream, I just thought, okay, well, I guess I have to pull them all out. And so I do that. And I literally wake up touching my teeth just to make sure I hadn't lost any of them. And I told my husband about the dream, but neither of us really thought much about it. Then a month or two later, I have another dream about my teeth. And this time I'm dreaming that I woke up late for work and I can feel the urgency of getting out of bed, getting ready for my next meeting. And I go to the bathroom to brush my teeth. And as I'm brushing, I feel a loose tooth. This time I am a bit more cautious about it and I start brushing slower, but the tooth falls out anyway, and it starts to bleed a lot. And I spit into the sink and I see the bowl red with just splats of blood. Now, if you've ever had a teeth dream or just really any vivid dream, you know how real and experiential they can feel. Like, I still have all of my teeth, obviously, but these dreams are just logged into my memory as if they really happened. I can replay them in my mind. And after the second dream, I woke up and immediately searched for the meaning of teeth dreams, specifically teeth falling out. And at the time, it kind of felt like the only thing I could do to try and make sense of why I kept having this recurring theme show up. I read a few articles and came across a Reddit thread, a literal rabbit hole, and one of the most common explanations was anxiety and stress. And as I was reading that, I was like, oh wow, yeah, this tracks. Those two dreams happened when I was in the deep end at work, literally almost on the brink of exhaustion. Recently, I started thinking about that dream again since I honestly haven't had anything that vivid since, which has sent me down another rabbit hole because I don't understand. Why teeth? Why is a dream about teeth falling out so universally understood as a stress dream? Why couldn't my brain give me a boring dream about an email not being answered? Turns out there is an answer. But there's actually kind of two. One that is rooted in science and one rooted in something a bit more spiritual. Even though you're asleep, your body is still very much working. You start in what's called N1, simply a light stage of sleep. And this typically only lasts a few minutes while your brain waves begin to slow down and your muscles start to relax. It's literally so light that if someone wakes you up during this stage, you'd most likely say you weren't even asleep yet. Or if you're my grandma hogging the TV, you'd say you were just resting your eyes. Then you drop into N2, and it's where we spend the most time sleeping. Your body temperature drops, your heart rate and breathing slow down. Your brain also starts to fire little bursts of activity called sleep spindles, which researchers think help protect your sleep from outside noise. After that, you sink into N3. Deep sleep, and usually the hardest stage to wake someone up from. In this stage, your body is doing restoration work, like repairing your tissues, building bone and muscle. Think of it kind of like an overall tune-up on your whole system while you're asleep. And if you do get pulled out of N3, this is typically when you're going to feel groggy or disoriented. Finally, you hit REM sleep, and this is where most of your vivid dreaming occurs. Your brain activity in REM sleep actually looks similar to when you're fully awake. So your eyes are moving behind your eyelids, your heart rate and breathing get a little irregular, and your body goes into something called atonia, a temporary paralysis, which prohibits your body from moving around during this stage. So your most vivid experiential dreams happen during this particular stage. If you think about it, your brain is basically wide awake in there, just locked in a body that can't move. And there are a lot of factors that can mess with how your brain moves through each sleep stage. For example, what you eat before bed. As if I haven't already told you so many stories, when I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, I had a dream that I was hurting myself and hurting other people. And as a kid, you don't really have this understanding for why you're dreaming about something so violent. And I thought, oh my God, something's wrong with me. And so I told my mom very seriously, and she calmly said, "It's because you had too much candy before bed." And I remember thinking, I just told you about this violent nightmare, and your response is because I had Sour Patch Kids. Okay, but turns out it's true. A 2025 study out of the University of Montreal surveyed over 1,000 people about their dreams and their diets. And desserts and sweets came out as the most commonly blamed food for worse sleep and disturbing dreams. Your blood sugar spikes fast and your body is releasing insulin to bring it back down. That tiny little roller coaster happens while your body is trying to settle into each sleep stage, but it keeps getting pulled in and out of them. The thing that makes your food spicy raises your core body temperature, and your body actually needs to cool down in order to sink deeper into sleep. Similar effects happen when you eat dairy and have caffeine before bed. No kidding. But okay, sleep stages and blood sugar crashes explain why we dream vividly, but they don't always explain why teeth. Why does my brain reach for something this specific and honestly kind of gross instead of something familiar and real? So I kept digging. A 2018 study out of Ben Gurion University tracked over 200 people and tested two theories. Is it stress on an emotional level, or is it something physical causing these visceral dreams? They used a questionnaire that tracked how often people experience different common dream themes, like teeth dreams, falling, and a separate questionnaire that measures general psychological distress, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. Then they asked one more important question. Do you wake up with any tension or achiness in your teeth, gums, or jaw? The idea being that your jaw might be holding on to real physical tension while you sleep, whether or not you're actually stressed, and that's resulting in these visceral dreams. The people who had more teeth dreams did not score higher on the psychological distress questionnaire, but what did line up was the physical piece. People who woke up with tension in their teeth, gums, or jaw were the ones who were having more teeth dreams. Dreams like falling correlated with psychological distress, not with physical tension. So teeth dreams were the odd one out. The one dream that tracked with a body sensation instead of an emotional one. So yeah, when I first read this, I thought, maybe those dreams were not directly influenced by my anxiety and work stress after all. But then I realized, this still kind of is related. It's just not going through my brain first. It's actually going through my body. So I'm probably clenching my jaw all day without even noticing. And my body is holding on to that tension all the way into the night. And my brain is trying to translate that somatic memo into a dream, which has honestly made me wonder if my body is sending me messages I can't always consciously catch. What else might be trying to reach me the same way? We've covered what is happening in your brain and body when you dream, but people, you and me, want to know the answer why. Why do we try to translate dreams? Why do we try to attribute meaning to them? Why do we even have recurring dreams? And I think that's where we have to open up to the idea of the beyond, the universe. So let's go back way back. The earliest written records of dream interpretation come from ancient Mesopotamia. The Sumerians, Assyrians, and Babylonians all kept quite meticulous records of their dreams on clay tablets. They believed dreams were direct messages from the beyond, heaven, divine, whatever you feel comfortable calling it. We're talking about more than 4,000 years ago, and people were also trying to make sense of their dreams through storytelling. One of the earliest recorded dreams in history belongs to Dumuzi of Uruk. His dream of dying appears in the myth known as Dumuzi's dream, which is tied to the larger story of the descent of Inanna. The story follows Inanna, the Sumerian queen of heaven and the goddess of love, fertility, and power, as she journeys into the underworld. When she returns, she must find someone to take her place, and she chooses Dumuzi, her husband. And it just so happens that in this epic, his prophetic dream foreshadows his fate. It's detailed that Dumuzi goes to his sister to help interpret his dream. The Egyptians took dreams just as seriously, where they had established the profession of dream interpreters who served in temples and advised pharaohs. And that brings us to our first dream dictionary. The Egyptians believed they were communicating with gods in their dreams, and therefore distinguished between good dreams sent by the sun god Horus and bad dreams sent by the god of the underworld, Seth. If a man sees himself looking out of a window, it's interpreted as a good omen for receiving favor or clarity. But if a man sees himself seeing his face in a mirror, it's considered a bad omen for misfortune or instability. This framework carried on for years and across civilizations. Dream incubation, in which one slept in a temple or sacred space in hope of receiving guidance or healing in the dream state, traveled from ancient Egypt to ancient Greece. The Greeks expanded on this practice, turning dream interpretation into something more structured, using it as a form of medical treatment within healing temples in which a priest would interpret the dream. Artemidorus of Daldis was a Greek professional dream interpreter who wrote all of this information in a systematic manner. The Oneirokritika, which translates to the interpretation of dreams, synthesized thousands of years of dream knowledge in one place, surely drawing inspiration from Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Now here's what I love. Artemidorus saw dream interpretation as a technical skill, something learned and applied rather than a mystical gift from the beyond, which personally aligns with my belief that everyone can embody the spiritual, the mystical, the cosmic. But let's jump forward, otherwise we will be here for hours. By the late 1800s, an Austrian neurologist by the name of Sigmund Freud was running into a wall while working with patients. They all had symptoms, fears, and behaviors that didn't quite make sense. He then began to wonder if the answers were buried somewhere beneath conscious thought. Freud began to analyze his own dreams, using them to introduce his theory of the unconscious through the lens of dream interpretation. He called it The Interpretation of Dreams. Same titles as Artemidorus almost 2,000 years earlier. But Freud's argument was a radical break from everything we just discussed, everything that came before. Ancient cultures and civilizations believed that the gods sent you this message, but Freud's theory was that you set yourself this dream. Freud thought that dreams were the vehicle through which our unconscious reached consciousness. In the modern era, dream symbolization moved away from divinity to purely psychological. One of Freud's former students, Carl Jung, proposed something different and something more spiritually resonant. Jung proposed that there are archetypes that are universal symbols and themes across cultures and societies, and they unite us through a collective unconscious. For example, the shadow, parts of yourself that you don't see or want to admit to, or the persona, how you present yourself to the world. This collective unconsciousness goes deeper than our personal ego, but the idea that we tap into something inherited or universal, dare I say, reincarnate. Either way, these two men shaped how we perceive dreams in the modern era. Dreams became portals into understanding ourselves. In 1953, a sleep lab changed that conversation. At the University of Chicago, graduate student Eugene Aserinsky observed that sleeping infants displayed periodic bursts of rapid eye movements along with brain activity, a pattern that would soon be linked to dreaming. And this was the first understanding into what we know to be REM sleep. And frankly, it revolutionized sleep science and research into dream studies. The mystery of it all still remains, but it just moved from a temple to a laboratory, which brings us to today. Regardless if you're leaning into the science or spirituality of it all, one thing remains true. Dreams are deeply, intimately shaped by the state of our bodies and our lives. If my body's sending messages I can't consciously catch, what else might be trying to reach me the same way? That's the same question that the Sumerians were asking on clay tablets. The same questions the Egyptians built a whole profession around. The same question Freud and Jung spent their careers arguing over. Different eras, different answers. God, ancestors, your own unconscious. But the question never changed. It simply sounds a lot like ancient civilizations were trying to tell us to pay attention to our dreams because we're being told something real. In our own universal culture, we never actually stopped treating dreams as prophetic. No one is writing a song about dreaming that they forgot to respond to an email. When the topic of dreams show up in our art, music, and stories, they're intentionally magical. Dreams have always been the language we reach for when something is too big, too true, too important. And in my humble opinion, I don't necessarily think all dreams are messages from the universe or beyond, nor do I think all dreams are just brainwaves. I do think dreams are worth paying attention to. I think dreams are an open communication channel to the spirit world if you choose for it to be. And at the very least, your body is trying to send signals about what's going on in your environment. So don't worry, I'm sure your great aunt won't come through tonight with profound messages unless you want her to, but it's you who gets to set that intention. I do personally think you should decode your dreams when you can. Think about why you keep having this repetitive dream. Why do you keep dreaming about this situation or person? Even if it's not through a spiritual lens, it can help you recognize patterns and feelings from your physical reality. And I think the fact that humans have been doing this exact practice for over 5,000 years means there's got to be something to it. So what are your thoughts around dreams? Are they messages? Are they patterns of your daily life? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to know. Oh, and we will have to save deja vu for another day.